never thought I'd be scared of a knock-knock joke, that's for sure. But after listening to this story last night, I had to go to the restroom, and the whole time I'm in the restroom, I'm like, no one better knock on my door right now. No one better knock on my door. So the guy gets woken up by his girlfriend saying knock knock. He looks at the time and it is 3:27 in the morning, and he is so confused. So he's like, what are you doing? Why are you waking me up saying knock knock? And her response to all of that is knock knock. And he's like, what the fuck? Like, we're asleep. Why are you waking me up trying to get me to play this little game with you by saying knock knock? And his girlfriend's like, just answer me. And she goes, knock knock. And he's like giving up. So he's like, fine, who's there? And she says, it's not me, don't open the door. Turns around and goes back to sleep, and he stays there like, what the fuck? So he ends up going to bed still, and the following morning he wanted to ask her why she did that, and it almost seemed like she was trying to ignore his question, but she ends up telling him, oh, it's just a little prank that I thought of, and like she leaves to work. Like she was trying everything to avoid the question for whatever reason. So they both go to work, they have dinner, and they go to bed, and again he gets woken up by her saying knock knock. He looks at the clock and it's 3:27 in the morning, and he looks at her and says, you already told me this was a prank, why are you doing this again? Let's just go back to sleep. And the only thing she responds to him with is knock knock. So he's irritated and he's like, what is the point of this? What are you doing? Like, just tell me what's the end game. All she says is just answer, knock knock. And he's like, fine, who's there? And she goes, it's not me, don't open the door. She turns around and goes back to bed. So at this point, the boyfriend is angry because he's like, why is she waking us up over a stupid prank or joke or a game when we both have to work the next day? So that morning when they woke up to go to work, he was like, you need to tell me why you're doing this. And she wasn't going to leave the door like she did the first night, not really giving him a real answer. So he's like, you need to tell me why. What's the end game? What are you doing? However, she gives him the same answer. It's just a game. It's just a game. Like, and he's like, why? And she's like, it's a game. And she just like leaves the house. So as you can imagine, they come home, have dinner, go to sleep, and again she wakes him up at 3:27 in the morning, but this time he's not answering. He's like, why are you doing this? What is the end game? And she goes, just answer, knock knock, just answer. And he's like, no. And she's like, answer, knock knock, answer. And he's like, I'm not answering, why are you doing this? So he's like, you know, you're causing a problem in our relationship. This isn't a joke anymore. You're waking me up in the middle of the night when we both have to go to work. So no, I don't want to play your game. Why are you doing this? You're like creating issues in our relationship. And she's still like, answer, please, answer, knock knock. So he ends up saying, who the fuck is it? Like, who the fuck is at that door? And she goes, it's not me, don't open the door. She turns around and goes to sleep. So morning comes around and he wants to have a serious conversation with her. So he tells her, I don't know how or what kind of conversation I need to have with you to let you know that it's really messed up that you keep waking us up in the middle of the night and it's creating a big problem. And this time she was like apologetic. She's like, I'm sorry, I don't mean to do it. I just thought it was a game. He's angry with that answer because it makes no fucking sense where you keep doing this to him, you know what I mean? So he storms out. He goes to work and all day she's sending him text messages like, I'm sorry, and she's calling him, he's not answering. He's ignoring everything. He mentions that the last text that she sends him is like, I'm so sorry, I know that sleep is important, I promise this is not gonna happen again, please forgive me. But the boyfriend kind of starts feeling bad because they had never argued like this before, so for him to ignore her calls or texts made him feel a little bit guilty. So he's like, okay, well, I'm gonna forgive her and I'm gonna make her dinner because I don't want this to be like the end of us. So he goes home, he makes her dinner, they eat together, and they go to bed. This time he gets woken up again with a knock knock. He glances at the clock and it's 3:27 in the morning, and he says that he wants to get up and just scream at the top of his lungs. Like, he wants to grab everything in that room and just fucking break it apart. So he says that he turns to look at his girlfriend that's probably next to him, like say knock knock, but instead she's standing on the bed looking down at him with the craziest smile saying knock knock. The way he describes this smile, I don't know if you guys ever seen that movie, oh my god, the movie Smile, okay, where it's like extended and it looks freaky. He's like, the smile was very off-putting. It was not like her normal smile. So as he's looking up at her with that weird fucking smile, he says, what are you doing? And in between that smiley face, she's telling him, knock knock. Oh my god, I got chills. At that moment, after she says knock knock again with her weird ass fucking smile, he says that her body started cracking and bending, and it was like a scene from a scary movie, and it scared him so much that he jumps out of bed and runs to the kitchen. But once he gets to the kitchen to catch a breath, he hears a knock at the front door. When he hears the knock, his first instinct is like, who is it? And it's his girlfriend's voice saying, love, please open the door. Whatever is in there is not me. Open the door, please. Whatever is in there is not me. Open the door, please. Please open the door. Don't listen to the person that's in there. Open the door. He has no idea what to do because he's like, who's the real one in the bedroom, outside the door? But in that moment, he had no time to do anything because whoever was in the bedroom, his girlfriend, comes out with that creepy smile, running full force towards him. But by the time she's about to get to him, he faints, passes out because of how scared he was. He says that he wakes up 2 hours later and his girlfriend is nowhere in that home. He says that he hasn't seen her since. He even made a police report or a missing person report because he has not heard of her. He has not seen her. Like, she's disappeared and has never returned. Honestly, that scares me more because what if one day she comes back with her creepy ass smile? Can you imagine? Knock knock. Oh, I just scared myself. Anyway, what do you guys think? Because first of all, the first knock knock, if my husband woke up and said knock knock and I'm like, who's there? It's not me, don't open the door. Divorced, bitch. What the If someone ever asked me if there was a story that I would want all of my followers to listen to from beginning to the end, it would be this one. These are the type of stories that truly scare me so much. Just wait till the ending of this. So this guy says that when he was very, very young, he had a best friend named Raul. He said that it was a privilege to be Raul's best friend because unlike his home life, Raul's home life was really amazing. Raul had two parents who loved him so much and gave him attention. He even remembers how Raul didn't have to share his bedroom and had it all decorated with things that he loved. He lived in this really big house and had all the toys that just kids would dream of. He even had the newest and most modern video game setup, so of course when Raul asked him to stay the night, he was happy to. And just like he expected, he had the time of his life in that sleepover, and it wasn't just like the toys and having fun with Raul, but even Raul's parents treated him like he was a part of the family. He remembers eating sweets and they even ordered pizza, which was really rare in his own household. He remembers even little details like when they were gonna watch movies, they would let him choose the movie that the entire family was going to watch. He says that they would watch the movie and then they would go play video games, they would have snacks until they eventually would go to bed. However, not everything was perfect. There was just something about when nighttime came that was not good. He realized that something was not right the first night he spent the night in that house, and he was tossing and turning. He explains that what he started to hear was almost like if somebody was knocking on the bedroom window. He thought to himself that maybe it was a branch of a tree that was making that kind of sound, so he didn't even bother opening his eyes to look outside that window. However, a few moments later, he heard that tapping on the window again. He did pretend to be asleep while somebody was tapping on that window, but he admits that that really scared him, not knowing who was on the other side. He ended up falling asleep until it was morning time, and then he didn't tell anybody anything because he forgot since he was dreading going back home in the morning. So a week passed and it was the weekend again, and Raul again asked him if he wanted to spend the night, and he was so excited that he said yes and completely forgot about the window incident. However, they had fun. They went to bed, he couldn't fall asleep, and somebody was tapping on that window again. However, this time, after knocking or tapping on that window and him pretending to be asleep, he heard something different after. What he heard was somebody attempting to open that window. And he says that they were being successful because he could hear that window opening. He literally stood up, looked at the window, and he saw when a hand pulled back and hit. He said that the hand was long with his fingers all weird, and that to him, it was like a demon hand or something. He woke up Raul, who also looked and saw that the window was open, and they ran to the parents' bedroom and woke them up. The parents were obviously very alarmed, went, and they didn't see anything. The window wasn't even open. The parents also explained to him that they had an alarm system. They walked him to the alarm system and even went as far as giving him the code because they wanted him to feel comfortable, and if anything was wrong or if he ever needed to come over and they weren't home, he could put in that alarm code and come inside. And of course, that did calm him down. down, and him and Raul went back to the bedroom and they went to bed. And of course, with time, he completely forgot about that incident and he continued to go over to Raul's house. However, he does admit that every time in the night he would hear something. If it wasn't a tap on the window, it was something completely different. Unfortunately, he says that the sounds coming from the yard or from the window weren't even the worst of it. There was one night he really needed to go to the restroom. As he's going to the restroom, he could see the front yard of the house through this big window, and he swears that he sees a really tall, bald man just staring into the house. He said the man didn't have like any hair in his face, like it was no eyebrows, just his eyes, his lips, like he was very pale. So when he saw him the first time, it was on a Thursday. The following day, he sees him again, but this time he is a little bit closer to the house. By the time Saturday came, he was right next to the window of that house. He did say that he thought to himself, like, why am I seeing this ghost? I cannot bring it up. If I continue to bring this up to the family, they're gonna stop inviting me over and they're not gonna let me hang out with Raul anymore. However, there was one last occasion where he saw this bald man. He woke up because he was really thirsty and he was gonna go to the kitchen and get a glass of water. He remembers that his grandmother told him about this like myth where if you wake up in the middle of the night and you're really thirsty, it's because someone has been observing you. Okay, didn't need to hear that within this story. I'm a thirsty ass bitch at 3 in the morning. Anywho, he gets up, he starts walking towards the kitchen, and at this point, he knew this house almost like if it was his own. So he was just gonna go and get a glass of water and go back to bed. However, when he walked out of Raul's room and about to head towards the kitchen, something that was in the living room walking into the kitchen was surprised to see him. And unfortunately, he recognized what that was. The figure that he had been seeing outside was now inside of the house. The bald man just stayed very still, and he said that he just walked backwards, went into Raul's room and closed that door. And obviously he didn't tell the family anything, but he knew that this was out of control and very much out of his hands. The things that he was seeing were just getting worse and worse. And unfortunately, he would refuse to spend the night at Raul's house after that. He said that in the beginning when Raul would invite him over and he would say no, that maybe he didn't give it that much importance, but eventually Raul would invite somebody else and he started having new friends, and him and Raul just weren't friends anymore. Time passes and he says that when they were 25 years old, he ended up bumping into Raul again. They were so happy to see each other that they ended up grabbing a coffee and just sat down and started talking. He tells Raul that all of his fond memories were at his house and that he was so grateful that they were friends even if it was for a short amount of time. And he also explained to Raul why he stopped coming over, because of that ghost that only he would see every night. That is when Raul told him something to calm him down, but it was the complete opposite. That definitely did not calm him down. Raul told him the following. Yeah, there was something there at that house. That they discovered it a year after he stopped coming over to Raul's house. It was definitely not a ghost, but it was terrifying. Raul said that even his parents were like, oh my gosh, the kid was right this entire time and we had no idea. A family member of Raul's father knew that house very well. This family member only lived several streets away from them. This family member had severe mental issues and was supposed to be watched and in his own house at all times because he was dangerous. However, he had found a way to escape that house every night without being caught. And every night that he would escape, he would head over to Raul's house. At first only standing outside the house, and then eventually figuring out the alarm system's code and getting inside of that house. They even figured out that the way he got that code was when they had given it to him that one night that he was scared. They actually found him one night because the family was gonna go on vacation, but the dad forgot something at home. When the dad walked into the house, he found him inside, and this family member attacked the dad. The family member ended up running out of that house, but eventually was caught by the police. He was taken, but not to jail because again, he had very severe mental health issues. And after all this, they found out that every night that he would escape his house, he had attacked a lot of people, ending their lives. Raul also told him that after that, he was never able to sleep comfortably in his room, knowing that the guy was so close. He had opened his window, he had done all of these things, until this family member did end up passing away 4 years after that incident. Even after his passing, they were to find people that he had ended and they never knew. So yeah, this is how he found out that he was never seeing a ghost. He was seeing that family member with severe mental issues shoes and he survived. This is why this scares me so much, because I feel like you should be more scared of the living than the dead. The way that this could happen to anyone is what scares me so much. But anyway, what do you guys think?
I lied, because this story that I'm about to tell you is the scariest story I've ever heard. If you're new here, hi. I just talk about some pretty scary stuff, and recently I opened an email where anyone who finds this page would be able to submit their ghost stories. And let me tell you, not only have I been getting an abundance of stories that I have loved reading that are from every corner of the earth, these are actually scary. And what I mean by actually scary is exactly that. They actually freak me out. On my last video, I said this was the scariest story that I've ever heard. This one. So I just heard scratching, and as you can see, it's still day out, and that's the only time I really film these videos is during the day because I'm a scaredy cat. So I don't know what that's about, because I thought it was my boyfriend pranking me. So I looked outside and there's no one there. Only when I did the intro for this person. So I'm going to redo it, and if it happens again, I hope it's on video. So anyways, this story comes from Dakota, who opens the email like this. This is the story about a who disguised itself as a little girl and haunted me for 2 years. Dakota then gives us some background context and says that she's a medium. She has seen, felt, heard, and touched spirits since she was around 5 years old. Which in retrospect is really scary when you think about it. But she says it all started when she was staying at her mom's house 2 hours away. She had a friend who lived right in front of the woods, and they decided to play hide and go seek. So Dakota finds a great hiding spot in between a shed and a chain link fence. And she says she was hiding, looks over to her right, and on the other side of the fence is a little girl staring at her. And as soon as her and this little girl made eye contact, the little girl reached through the chain link fence and grabbed her wrist. Dakota yanks her hand back and looks back at this little girl, and she is not there anymore. It is also to be noted that this was around fall time, so there were leaves on the ground and branches and twigs and etc. And she didn't hear anyone walk away or run. So Dakota runs out, tries to tell her friend what had happened, and her friend is just not having it because she's scared. Fast forward 2 months, and she's back at her dad's house and having a sleepover with an old friend. As Dakota and her friend are talking to each other on her bed, she looks over at the doorway, and the little girl is standing right in the doorway. She didn't really think anything about it because at the time, all the neighbor kids were allowed to just kind of walk in her house. And I know families like that, so I understand. But she did a double take, and the little girl was gone the next time she looked. She asked her friend, "Did you see someone?" And her friend said, "No, I didn't see anyone." And Dakota said, "Little did I know this was the beginning of a 2-year ordeal." Dakota says every day since then, she sees this little girl in her house. And this little girl did not talk. She just stared at Dakota a lot of the time. And sometimes she would only show half of her face from around the corner. And I'm going to quote this. But her favorite thing to do was watch me sleep. Dakota includes in her email that she likes sleeping in complete darkness. And the only thing that is radiating light in her room is her alarm clock that is blue. And she says every single night she would wake up and see this little girl standing in the doorway, watching her sleep. Dakota says that the most active this little girl was when she was home alone, cleaning her room. And Dakota, while cleaning her room, looks over into the living room, and just for some context, she lives in a trailer, so it's completely open concept, so you can look through rooms. She looks into the living room and sees a little girl standing there watching her. As soon as they make eye contact, the little girl runs into the kitchen. So Dakota follows her. And once she goes into the kitchen, the little girl standing in front of the fridge. The moment they make eye contact, the little girl runs into her dad's room. So she goes into her dad's room. Nobody's there. She's looking around. Nothing. Hears a loud bang coming from the laundry room. Goes into the laundry room. Sees the little girl standing in front of the washer and dryer. Then she runs back into the kitchen, and Dakota didn't see her the rest of the day. And Dakota says that It was really common for this little girl to not speak ever, but she would want Dakota's attention, so she would run around and kick things and knock things off counters and slam cabinets, etc. But fast forward 2 years, and Dakota's obviously used to it by now, but she hasn't seen this little girl in 4 months. Until one day, she saw her in her dream, and it was Dakota's first lucid dream. Dakota says that she goes to sleep, wakes up, and everything in her dream feels so real. She turns over at the clock and it reads 3:16. When Dakota turns her head back around, there the little girl is. And she looks normal little girl that she's seen for the past 2 years at this point. And all of a sudden, this little girl starts to look really mangled and disgusting. She starts developing this smile and these teeth and sprints at Dakota, where Dakota falls back in her bed and wakes up. Looks over at the clock, 3:16. Dakota gets up, goes to the bathroom, and as she's standing up from using the bathroom, the little girl's standing in the doorway. She looked like the same little girl that she's seen the past 2 years, until again she looked really mangled and disgusting and sprints at Dakota, where Dakota falls backwards screaming. And they had this animal cage in their bathtub at the time that they were cleaning, falls back on that, and she could feel the cage under her. But nonetheless, she wakes up again. And it is again 3:16 a.m. But at this point, Dakota is too scared to move and too scared to do anything, so she just sits there until the sun comes up, where she feels safe. Dakota then, that morning, started to feel this burning sensation on her back, goes and looks in the mirror, and there's a huge gash on her back from where she fell onto something. Her then best friend comes over later that day and also has spiritual connections, and tells her about this dream that she had where she was watching in third person and verbatim describes the dream that Dakota had twice. And at this point in time, Dakota did not tell her what was going on. Dakota then ends her email by telling us that if you see a clock or a phone in your dream, it means you're not really dreaming. And as corny as it sounds, she really and truly believes that this little girl was disguised as trying to get her when she was in her most vulnerable state, sleeping. But that experience was 5 years ago, and she hasn't seen that little girl since. And this is all I'm going to say. I don't know how people deal with that stuff for years. I dealt with it for a month, and no. That story was really long. However, I think it was the best story I've read so far. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. Stay tuned for my ghost stories.